Let's start today with a quote from a great American. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them. This is the National Briefing with me, Kelly Nash, and we agree that there's a problem. What is the problem? Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask people on the left, the greatest problem facing America would be that Texas wants to redistrict. And I'll try to present their argument as best I can. It's basically that they're going to disenfranchise liberal voters because they'll be moved into Republican stronghold districts when they remap it. And then why should I even vote? If it's 60-40, what difference does my vote make? There's no way a Democrat's ever going to win. So we've disenfranchised their votes. Okay. I'll accept the premise. I will also, I have to point out that you have done that already. And that's why your threat that we're going to start doing this in New York or California is pretty comical because you've already done it. But anyway, we'll just accept that. Now, the premise being that it is disenfranchising to Americans, that there's a misrepresentation of the actual voting populace, that the will of the American people is being stifled. That's what you're saying is going to happen in Texas. Okay, that is a problem if that's the end result. Let's look at it from another perspective. As Albert Einstein says, we've got to look at it from a different way as well. Okay, another way of looking at it is you have already stolen a bunch of seats. And I'm not even talking about the redistricting. I'm talking about illegal immigration. Now, I'll accept the Democrats' premise again that no illegals have ever voted. They've never voted or even attempted to vote in an election. They understand their place is to just simply be here and take advantage of our healthcare systems and all that sort of stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. They're working hard in the fields. They're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do. Okay, we got all that. Now, this comes to us in 2024 from the Center for Immigration Studies, and this is a pro-immigrant outlet. And what they say is their study shows that in the 2020 census, the Democrats added 17 House seats because of illegal immigration. In other words, you take these illegal immigrants and they're going to move to sanctuary cities and states. And so these are strongholds for the Democrats. They don't even have to vote. They're counted in the census. And when they're counted in the census, somebody says, oh, well, there used to be one seat represented this area. There's so many people living there now. Now we got to split it and make it 2 seats. And we know that, okay, so there's 17 who were added because of that. And then they said if you add in the U.S.-born minor children, that's another, another 5 seats or so? 4 seats. 5 seats, because they're up to 22 seats. So 22 Democrat seats were added. If you took away 22 seats from the Democrats right now, they're completely destroyed. Texas is trying to add 5 back for the Republicans. But you take away 22 seats, there is no problem as far as the Republicans are concerned. But again, looking at the problem, now we understand why illegal immigration is so important to the Democrats. That's why you got Van Hollen and all these other senators and House members visiting El Salvador and other places. It all makes sense now. Now, listen to how this is Florida Representative Anna Escamani from Orlando. She got to visit Alligator Alcatraz the other day, and she's going to try to paint a horror story to play on your heartstrings because as an American, you don't want anybody on earth to have to suffer. So Anna's going to paint a picture of suffering.
We were not allowed during the tour to speak to those who were being detained. We witnessed them. We were walked through the intake process, and you could see individuals who are being chained at their wrists and at their ankles and chained together wearing orange jumpsuits. And then we were able to gaze into one of the full tents for about 30 seconds. And this was 8 cages with 32 men per cage in one tent, 3 toilets per cage, and they're very tight. And of course, when they opened the doors, all the men started chanting freedom in Spanish and were begging us to help.
Wow. Did that get you? I don't know. It didn't get me because it sounds like a typical prison. That's what it sounds like. They call them cages instead of cells to try to make it sound worse. Also recognize that every one of those men in there not only has an order of deportation that has been sitting there for usually years to get them out of this country, but they're already been found guilty of violent crimes. These are rapists. These are sex traffickers. These are drug dealers. These are the worst of the worst. And the fact that they're sitting in a prison in Florida awaiting a flight home to wherever they're from does not pull on my heartstrings. I know that's what they want to do. They're trying to pull on your heartstrings. Well, I'd like to pull on your heartstrings too. Here's an interview with Tom Homan. This came out like 6 weeks ago with Miranda Devine. I don't think it got anywhere near the attention that it should have. But Tom Homan is describing, first off, we all know it's an accepted number. There's at least 300,000 children that came across the border that are missing. We have found some of them. But he's also going to contrast what they were doing in the first Trump administration compared to the Biden administration. And that is where it gets, in my estimation, horrific.
Some of the children were we found with their family, perfectly safe. They just didn't respond to call-ins, or they went and took off because they didn't want to face the consequences of immigration court. But we rescued some victims of sex trafficking. We rescued some victims on forced labor. We found children working on ranches and chicken farms, not going to school, but enslaved labor in the United States of America. That was the whole nexus of the last administration. If there's no overcrowding in the ORR facilities, then we can say the border is secure. So they didn't properly vet. We did DNA testing in Trump Tour 45.
To see if they were related, if they were really.
And we found in some of the pilots we did with DNA testing, as high as 30%, the families weren't families. No relatives at all. They were being trafficked.
Wow. He doesn't really sell it as hard as I think it should be sold. In the first Trump administration, the DNA testing that they did where people claimed these are my children that I'm bringing across the border, 30% were lying. 30%. Those children were being trafficked. 30%. They ended up in enslaved labor. Like he said, he described people working at chicken farms and whatnot. They're for no pay. Underage children being like the kids at the marijuana plant out there in or marijuana farm out in California, enslaved labor, or sex trafficked. This is the will of the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is fighting to keep that system alive. That is what they want because their power grab, they can't sell you. They cannot sell the American people on their vision for what the Democrats really want. So what we have to do is steal the power, and we're going to steal it by lying to you about what's actually happening in your community. They will gaslight you on anything and everything. You know a Democrat's lying when their lips are moving. But just remember that they are the party of open borders. They are the party of sex trafficking. They are the party of enslaved labor. They are the party of Americans aren't going to do that job, so we've got to bring in the illegals and have them clean our hotel rooms for free at the threat of a gun. That's who they are.